Guruji ki Fateh. So the topic today is happiness and suffering. Sukh Dukh. It's something we deal with in our lives. Everybody pursues happiness in one way or the other. Our Declaration of Independence. Mic is on. Yeah. So even the Declaration of Independence guarantees to all of us Americans the pursuit of happiness. Actually, some people think it's in the Constitution. It's actually not, but it is assumed to be one of the basic rights. So we all pursue happiness in different ways. The baby starts off with gets milk and it's satisfied, it's happy. It's hungry, it cries. A few days older, it smiles when the mom is holding it. So from there it goes on, and we all pursue different ways of getting happy. Most of us pursue wealth, success. We measure happiness in different ways. When you are younger, it's popularity in school, it's love, it's relationships. As you get older, sometimes it becomes more a matter of power. People who have enough money, then they look to become famous. Then they want to run for office once they get wealthy enough. But people are never satisfied. We're always searching for happiness. There's no end to it. When you get wealth, you want more. And after a while, that doesn't give you enough pleasure. Then you want fame, then you want other things. And you still remain unsatisfied. And our needs and desires keep changing. So we're still not happy. And then, of course, the other things happen all the time that make us unhappy. Some of them are a matter of how we look at things, depending on what we are pursuing. Some of them are things that are, regular misfortunes. You lose somebody you really care for, death, sickness. So happiness and sorrow is a lot of our lives. As Guruji says, in spite of our efforts, manas jadan karat bo bhat, tiske kartab birthe jaat. So whatever we try, it doesn't always work. Bad things happen that make us unhappy. Jatan bahut sukh ke kiye dukh ko kiyo na koi. Everybody looks for happiness. Kaho nanak sun re mana har bhave so hoy. So whatever we do, it's in spite of our best efforts, what we're going to get is what Vaheguru is setting out for us. It's not under our control. But these are all part of life, and they're all actually gifts of God. It's a life He gives us. Dukh sukh doy dar kapde pehre jai manukh. They are like our different garments that we wear. That is part of our being. And it all happens under God's hukam. So we are constantly tossed about on this ocean. Guruji describes it as bhaujal. It's a stormy ocean of fire. We're always being tossed around by the waves, sometimes up, sometimes down. Kabhu jira oop chadat hai, kabhu jai payale. Sometimes we're all excited about things and we feel good about ourselves, feel good about what's happening, but then something punctures it, and then we go to the other end. We get depressed. We go down to the depths of despair.
Is this about Dukh and Sukh, or is more about a state of mind?
They are both very closely related. There's Dukh, there are kind of two layers of meanings to Dukh and Sukh, the way the word is used. One is fortunate good things and bad things happening to us. Sukh Dukh de moke, somebody dies, you say Dukh da vela hai, Sukh Dukh de vela asna karna hai. So happiness and sorrow are good and bad things happening in our life. But a deeper meaning is what's our state of mind. Sukh is when you're happy, Dukh is when you're not happy. So it depends on the context. Yep. Jatan bahut. Happiness and suffering, okay. I think we did this. Am I going backwards? Okay. But as we just said, it's a matter of perspective. So actually what happens is not Sukh or Dukh, it's events. Things are happening, something is happening. Whether it makes us happy or sad depends on our state of mind, our perspective, is whether it is a Sukh or it's a Dukh. And depends on one's perspective and depends on one's spiritual state, whether we treat it that way or not. So there is a big difference between a perceived Dukh and Sukh, negative events, how we see them, and the actual Sukh and Dukh, which is what we'll really be getting into, the state of happiness versus suffering. So the goal actually should be to achieve that state of mental and spiritual peace and happiness. But most of the time what we are pursuing are events that we think will make us happy and avoiding things that we think will cause us pain. Now there are things that are universally negative being sick cannot be, being sick and being in physical pain is obviously something that you would consider unfortunate, but the amount of negative dukh it causes you can be widely different. But the Guruji tells us, we always look for Sukh all the time, and we avoid dukh. But Guruji tells us that happiness can be a blessing. Happiness can be a curse, and suffering can be a blessing. We see it in our Rehra Sahib every day. Dukh daru, sukh rog bhaya. So we want to dig a little bit deeper and see how that happens. So we think good things will always make us happier. Things go our way, but it isn't. What happens is, one of the things is that if we have success, either in our job, in life, we always, after a while, we forget that it's a blessing. We think it's something we did. We achieved it. It's an achievement. And we feel good about it. And to some extent, it's good. It builds our self-confidence. But it very easily goes into haume. And every bit of success, we take credit for it at some level. And haume, as we know, is a big challenge. It is a big obstacle to reaching Vaheguru, to achieving our spiritual growth. Haume naave naal virodh hai, doi na vase ek thai. It gives us arrogance, and not only do we feel good about ourselves, but we also start looking down upon those who don't have it. The rich think the poor must have something wrong with them. They're all moochers. One who is successful in his job thinks that, I'm the one who does it right, so the other guys are just not as capable. They are not smart enough, or they are not as good at presenting themselves, or just not as bright. The one who's successful looks down upon others, and this goes in almost every field. As we feel good about ourselves, we often tend to also consider others to be not as good because they haven't achieved that. So that's one of the big challenges, Hanji.
The worst is, Vijay, when this happens in spirituality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Someone who does a lot of power, or someone who thinks that they have achieved something and they get these great visions, is always riding a high horse and telling you, oh, you don't get up at this time, and you don't do this, and you don't do that. And they don't get it that by saying all this and putting people down, hame naame naal virodh hai. All of that is going to naught.
Yeah, there's a beautiful quotation, I forget now, it talks about religious leaders who achieve some spiritual growth, and then they get followers, and they become, they become the guru, and others are their followers.
Their ego.
Yeah, and then Guruji says, चले थे कुछ समथिंग को रास्ते चटक गए विच ही रह गए उथे ही बीचे अटके किया गया
मिलन को बीचे अटके
yeah, because they get this arrogance.
होते की है केसो कियो ना मीत चाले थे हर मिलन को बीचे अटके जीत.
So instead of getting closer to Vaheguru, they become teachers, they get followers, and then they don't go any further. They are stuck in their spiritual path.
Remember the line with the page?
याद आएगा.
60.
What is happening here? Don't shut down. What's this thing doing? Oh, Windows, what are you doing to me? Did it actually go off? It's rebooting or shutting down? Starting. Okay. So why did Windows think it needed to reboot? It's telling me, don't think you're doing such a good job with this presentation. I can shut you down any moment. Don't let your ego get in the way, right?
So many places कि सुख और दुख में से इक्को जा मन है.
बिल्कुल.
एक जगह कई जगह ते ये चीज़ है एक जगह ते संस्कृत श्लोक आते हैं 6 लक्षण दसते हैं. What is a perfect person? मंत्रंग राम राम ज्ञान. फिर the second जड़ा है ना ज्ञानम सम दुख सुखम. जिन्हें सुख और दुख नू ਇਹਦੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਇਕੁਅਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੰਨਿਆ ਨਾ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਪਰਫੈਕਟ ਪਰਸਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ. ਫਿਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਪੜ੍ਹਨੇ ਬੜੀ ਵਾਰ ਸੁਣਨੇ ਆ ਗੁਰਮੁਖ ਬੁੱਢੇ ਕਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਅੰਤਰ ਸੁਰਤ ਗਿਆਨ ਹੈ ਉਹਦੇ ਚ ਕੀ ਹੈਗਾ ਕੋਈ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਸਦਾ ਅਨੰਤ ਵਿਵੇਕ ਰਹੇ ਸੁਖ ਦੁੱਖ ਇੱਕ ਸਮਾਨ ਗੁਰਮੁਖ ਬੁੱਢੇ ਕਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਉਹ ਸਦਾ ਅਨੰਤ ਵਿਵੇਕ ਰਹੇ सुख दुख एक समान जब तक तुसी सुख और दुख नु इक्को जे नहीं बनिया you will never be fulfilled.
Very good. You're already going ahead of me of my presentation. Very good. This is a very good point. That's what it's all about, really. It's not a complaint. I'm saying that is, that is what the whole topic is in a way. Hanji. So we talked about how success and good events and Sukh also tend to feed our home in many ways. It also, the other thing is, when we get something, if something makes us happy, we want more of it, and we keep going after. So people who have lots of money still work the hardest to get more, and they are willing to do anything, even dishonest things or be mean to others or whatever to do better. If somebody is, we are never satisfied. We want more and more. If we enjoy movies, we start seeing more and more of them till it becomes an obsession. We see that in the young. They think having a lot of cool things is a good thing, and you want to really OD on cool things. There was this woman in Philippines, the president's wife, who had this. After he was deposed, they found this huge stash of shoes she had been gathering, building a huge amount of shoes. So whatever we think makes us happy, we end up getting greedy and wanting more and more of that. So that's
little kid, what's her name? This TV purchase. I have 60 pairs of shoes.
And you have the Octobomb. Children are nice. It makes you happy. So she has lots and lots of kids. So it feeds all these negative things that should make us happy. Instead of that, they're doing the things to us that are actually going to make us unhappy. They're giving us arrogance. It's giving us greed. It gives us envy. The more we have of things, we end up being jealous of the others who have more. And sometimes the richer the people are, the more envious they are of those who are richer than them, the more competitive they get. And you see this in every field of life. Being successful, being blessed makes you, sometimes instead of being thankful for what we have, we end up looking at others who have something more than us. You build a fancy house and then you look at other people's houses and you say, they have this nice extra feature, maybe next time we should try to add that to our house. Or I bought this nice sports car, but there's a new model coming out. That guy is driving a better car, So it can actually lead to jealousy. And then the biggest thing is we get more entangled in the things that we are pursuing for happiness. They themselves become an entanglement. We spend more our time and energy on that. They may not give us happiness. It might actually be more of a hassle, but we are still pursuing it. We are trapped. We have a big house now, and I think it's a white elephant, because now I have to deal with everything that breaks there. We have to pay a lot of property tax. There's more and more issues with it. Surely it's nice to have a nice big house, but look at all the hassles that come with it. That applies to almost everything.
Everything applies to clothes, and I'll tell you I'm the biggest culprit. I have such a thing about getting, all of us women. I can only speak for myself. You want clothes, you want trendy clothes, you want this, you want that, and then there comes a point.
Then some of them don't fit, and you have to get them fitted, and you have to get them cleaned.
The clutter you create, that takes up your space and your mind, and you just reach a point where you don't want things anymore. You want to give them away, and you want to create space in your life. Because you reach that point where it actually becomes a negative having so much. I remember a beautiful line that Papa told me once. I used to love collecting antiques. I would take it. And he would tell me, he told me one day, he says, let me tell you something. When you see something beautiful, it has to be admired. And stand there, enjoy it. Say, wow, it's so beautiful. And then walk away. Because you enjoy the beauty and you will not take it home and cause clutter. And I remember that so often now. I'm like, I am able to walk away. Not all the time, but a lot more than I used to be able to. And say, wow, this is beautiful. But you know what? I have enough items. So all of these things actually become negative. They waste your time looking, reorganizing, organizing. Oh my God.
Happens especially with businesses. You're successful with something and you want to expand, you want to create more branches, and things get harder and harder to manage and more.
Talking about very, very simple level of just getting clothes.
Or a young person thinks it's fun to have a girlfriend, then they start having multiple ones and hiding them from each other, having affairs, make it more and more complicated, right? So there's so many examples of that where we complicate our life following the things that should give us happiness, and instead they make us less happy because it makes our life more complicated. And then in the case of wealth and things, you also have to worry about losing them. If you have a fancy car, you have to worry about somebody breaking into it where you park. You have to have a garage, you have to have insurance, you have to put an alarm system. In your investments, you have to watch your investments that they won't suddenly disappear. If you're traveling, you have to have somebody watch over them. So they come with fear of losing. When you have something that you think makes you happy, you worry about the fact that you have to preserve it and you have to protect it from other challenges. बड़े बड़े जो दिशा लोग तिनको व्याप है चिंता रोग.
जिस ग्रह थोड़ी, जिस ग्रह चिंता, जिस ग्रह बहुत, सुखरे प्रमत्ता, सुरुओं अवस्थाते जो मुक्ता, सोई सुहेला पाते.
So in the original line, Guruji says, "Dukh daru sukh rog bhaya ja sukh tam na hoy," because we get absorbed in the things, in the pursuit of happiness. We get so entangled that we forget God. We don't have the spiritual, we don't have the mental energy and time left to really focus on Vaheguru. We focus more on getting our worldly pleasures or pursuing happiness in the world. And moreover, because we feel we are more. We feel we do it ourselves, so we don't feel the need for Vaheguru as much. If things are going our way, most of us think of Vaheguru when something goes wrong. So that's one way that happiness can be a curse, and challenges can be a blessing because they make us think of Vaheguru. Hanji, kuch keh rahe thi tusi?
Oh, I just read the day somebody sent us an email. We think like Vaheguru is like a spare tire. We will use it when we need it, but it should be the steering wheel instead.
Bilkul. That's a very good example. So get absorbed in the pleasures and ja sukh tam na hoy. So that was some of the challenges about pleasures. We think they can only give us happiness, but most of those can be an insidious form of happiness because it can actually lead to challenges and take us away from our real happiness, the internal happiness that we should be going after.
They ensnare us and then they entrap us.
Ensnare us, entrap us, and distract us and divert us.
Look at each happiness and correlate it with external body or internal happiness. They are totally different.
Bilkul.
Each happiness can be classified differently.
I guess external is right, but even things we think are internal, if it's not related to Vaheguru, if it's not the true spiritual paths, even pleasures and reading and poetry and things like that, they have less of these challenges, but if that's what gives you pleasure, it can still be a distraction. It can still get you can still get obsessive, you're lost in those things. So it is, basically you have to watch out. And I think the key is gratitude. Je sukh deta tujhe dhyai. You can use happiness too as a way to get closer to Vaheguru. You can use happiness to thank Vaheguru. If you do that, then happiness is not a curse. It can be a curse. It's not that it's always a curse, but it can be a curse if we don't react to it the right way.
What can be a curse?
Happiness.
Yeah, if you live in gratitude.
If you live in gratitude, then it can actually help you getting closer to Vaheguru. It depends on how you react to it. So we see, I've seen some of the older people in our families who mutter Vaheguru Tera Shukar Hai at different times. You see them get up in the morning and say Vaheguru Tera Shukar Hai, sit down to a meal and say Vaheguru Tera Shukar Hai, and keep thinking about it all the time. And that is really the antidote to happiness being a curse, is to always be grateful. Suffering can be the medicine, Dukh daru. Now it's not doesn't mean we should seek suffering. Guruji is not in favor of hurting yourself, hurting the body, which many people do in the name of religion. In the name of religion, they cut themselves, they beat themselves, they go away and they starve themselves. All of this has been done in the name of religion and continues to be done. Guruji is not saying that, but he's saying when in spite of you should certainly pursue things that are positive, but negative things will happen, and when they do, he tells you how to deal with them. They will happen in spite of our best efforts. And again, the issue is how you react to them. So what happens most of the time when things don't go our way? Sometimes they can be good, it can get you closer to Vaheguru, but it can also be negative. You can get more dissatisfied. You can lose your faith in Vaheguru. You can get angry. You can blame Vaheguru. You can blame other people. It's not my fault, it's someone else's fault. You can get bitter, you can get depressed, you can get frustrated or feel helpless, and we can alienate ourselves from the divinity. But Guruji tells us that a better alternative is in the face of misfortune, remember God and lean on Him. जे सुख दे तुझे ध्यान जे इति राजा दुख विच सुख नहीं जिन्ना दुख लगे होना वाहिगुरू ਨੂੰ याद करो दुख भी तुझे ध्याई
ये सुख दे तुझे
राधी दुख भी तुझे ध्याई
ये भुख दे
इति राजा दुख विच सुख मनाई so जी की बिरथा होए सो गुर पे अरदास कर when something it is
अंदर साहब वो जी करोगे तो लेकिन लोग कहते हैं
which is the thing is that in this line when Bhagavad Gita but it says no if you're a better it's his blessing when you are a king it's his grace but how many people are able to live with that concept? How many of us?
It's only for me.
I know.
Well, the Gurbani.
Am I doing that? If I'm not doing that, I need to do it.
That's what I'm saying.
So Guru Sahib did
It's not easy.
Yeah.
क्या ना दोनों थोड़े कपड़े ने these are all blessings of Vaheguru. Dukh and Sukh are both. You can look upon them as all as hukam as Vaheguru's gifts. It's a challenge. It's easy for me to sit here and say, but it's not easy to do.
That's all I was saying.
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਅੱਗੇ ਆਓਗੇ ਨਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਆਓਗੇ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਦਾਤ ਤੇਰੀ ਦਾਤ
कि क्या दुख भूख सदमार
ਆਇਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਤੇਰੀ ਦਾਤ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਦੀ ਦਾਤ ਹੈ ਸਾਰੇ ਸੋ ਜਦ ਤੱਕ ਇतना प्यार नहीं पाएगा ना तब तक ये चीज़ ये प्यार पाना बेसिक थिंग कि ये इज डिवाइन लव डेवलपिंग द डिवाइन लव
बिल्कुल
उस प्यारे को जो गुजार रहा है सिर्फ you love me love my dog.
So when something goes wrong, if we think of Vaheguru, then it's actually being a medicine. जी की बिरथा होए सो गुर पे अरदास कर. When your soul is feeling sad, that's the time to come to Vaheguru to pray to Him. छोड़ स्यानप सगल मन तन अरब धर. So surrender to Vaheguru, lean on Him, sharan chao. That is going to be the way to deal with sorrow according to the Guru. If we put ourselves in Vaheguru's hand, we relate to Him like a child to his parent. If we really surrender to Him, really lean on Him, have faith and depend on Him, then it is His job. Birad hai kya Vaheguru da. He will take care of you because He is the parent. Then it's His job. Okay, ghadi na dekhan dei apna birad samale. This is His birad. He will not let you face the difficult times. So now, will he remove every cause of suffering? We'll get to that. Maybe it doesn't make sense for Him to do that. So some things, often He will. Things will fall in place. When you pray, prayer helps things work out. Or He gives you the strength to deal with it. The spiritual strength to cheerily accept His will.
Or that becomes a moment of growth.
Exactly.
Of growth.
Exactly. So if we do approach Him like innocent, trusting children in this way, then even the most difficult situations cannot really hurt us. बड़ा सोना this beautiful शब्द in सुखमनी साहब जाको मुश्किल अत बने ढोई कोई न दे लागू होए दुश्मना साख भी बच खले. It's not. I thought it was. Okay. But it's a very beautiful शब्द. सबे भजे आसरा श्री राग हाँ जी. सबे भजे आसरा चुके सब असराओ चित आवे उस पार ब्रह्म त लगे न तत्वाओ. As we remember Him, nothing is going to hurt us. He is going to watch over us. He is going to take us. But the key thing is Chitave Uspar Brahm. You have to think of Him really. You have to approach Him like a child. You have to really pray to Him. If you have faith. If you don't, if we are just doing it as like a mantra ke mantra pad liya ya jaake kisi nu mannat man liye, we've said if this thing happens to me, I'll go do prashad in the Gurdwara, or I'm going to do Japji Sahib this number of times because somebody told me that's what it'll do, then it's not going to really help. But if you really approach it with sincerity and with faith and with surrender, like a child approaching his parent with love, then it is His birad and He is going to take care of it. Now besides, it helps us in many other ways too. For one thing, as when we pray to Vaheguru, it reduces our sense of frustration and helplessness, because we are, we have someone to lean on. We are asking Him. We feel He's going to help us, and it shifts our attention away from negative things like anger and depression and frustration. And because anger can be very destructive, it can affect your body, mind, and spirit. And prayer in the face of adversity protects you from all these kinds of pathological reactions. Otherwise, when things go bad, that's the time when one can spiral down psychologically also. You can get into depression, you can get into into aberrant behavior of different kinds. And this is what keeps us psychologically on an even keel. If you have somebody, if you pray and you have faith and you're leaning on someone, you don't get helpless. You don't get that helplessness or that despair that can really lead to much further mental sicknesses. Instead, these negative experiences can actually help you to grow spiritually. So that is the way that Dukh can be a daru, is because we can make it a path to spiritual growth. And maybe that is why Guru gives some negative things happening even to the people that we see are most religious, the ones who are who are good and who are people we would look up to. We see them also getting sick sometimes, dealing with negative things in their lives. In the lives of the gurus, we see challenges that they faced. Guru Gobind Ji lost his 4 sons, and they all went through various things to show us how to deal with them. But all these negative things can be a gift, and they can be paths for spiritual growth. It is part of the reason for being in this human June. It's a part of the evolution of the soul. The soul is growing, and it's going to be perfected through many passages on earth, through this path of Naam Simran and part through the Guru. Then eventually it's going to find its home back. But this is a part of that spiritual growth.
Is the suffering also tied to what's in your fate? Destiny.
Well, what is destiny? Destiny is what is going to happen. Now, see, we think of past, present, and future in terms of our things, what happened before, what happened afterwards. From God's point of view, past, present, and future are all part of His canvas on which He writes things. And as a result of our actions, a result of divine plan, something is going to happen. That is what's written. That is what destiny is. So destiny has many components.
Tied into our actions.
Our own actions and Vaheguru's will. So very often when Gurbani talks about sab kuch likhya hoya pehle dawa, it really means that it's all under Vaheguru's will. It's all a part of that original source. Dhur isn't just means in the past. Dhur means the original source. Because time is meaningless to Vaheguru. He knows the past, he knows the future. But from that origin source is what controls everything. So Vaheguru is, at the deepest level, Vaheguru Ji is in control of everything. It's all part of his plan, his destiny.
But it's the laws that are in place that operate. It's not like the will is that, it's random. It's not. There are some laws in place and everything happens according to them. That's how I understand.
Well, the laws are a part of his will, yeah. He executes his will through paths. But he's not bound by those laws either.
Of course not.
We think of those laws as being rigid, but for Vaheguru has everything,
That's where they start.
Yeah.
Genetics is interesting.
Hanji?
Genetics is very interesting.
Yeah.
Because a lot of what our action is actually genetically bound to us.
What is that?
But it's not just genetics. A lot of things are beyond our control, not only because of our genes, but also because of our environment. I mean, our own will is only, even at the environmental side, our own will is only a tiny part of it. Exactly. It's our parents, our family, our people around us, what we learned from our friends, so it's both parts of it. They are all under part of our destiny.
The destiny is, when you said 2 things, right? Genetics and environment. The environment essentially starts with the family which you're born.
Yeah.
Which is again not something that you decide.
It's not something you
and
control.
The genes that you get.
And your friends and peer pressure can be even stronger than.
It's a destiny in that sense, but it's not. The laws are not limited to that. It goes beyond that with the environment that you create over.
So you may have genes, and they may lie dormant, or you may have genes that sort of get muted because of triggers.
Yeah, so that's
but the genes we get and where we are born, that is not in our hands. So that's part of Vaheguru's, and that can be
the DNA that has evolved.
So that can be part of our past actions as far as what genes we'll inherit.
Destiny is not like everything is within our control.
It's not fatalistic either.
It's not one extreme or the other. It's some in the middle, but it has a very strong influence. It cannot deny. Almost all medical studies will also prove that if you look at if today somebody is a criminal, his genes and the environment in which he was born and raised has an extremely strong impact to what he does.
Now, could somebody with the same genes and the same environment have not be a criminal? Sure.
Yeah,
some people will come out okay in those two things, and that's where probably there's some free will and some other things going on also.
Yeah, it's like a freeway with a few lanes, but you can go in one lane or the other.
That's very good.
So our will is very, very constrained.
Exactly.
We are very, with whatever we think we are doing, there's very little that's really in our hands. It's all in Vaheguru's hands. But we have to act like it is in our hands. Vaheguru has given us that responsibility here to make the right decisions, to follow his path, to listen to the Guru. So we have to follow. We have to both. On the one hand, we have to accept his will, recognize it's operating, and on the other hand, we have to take responsibility ourselves. We have to act like everything is in his hands, but it's still our responsibility. So both of them are important. If you go either way, you get in trouble. If you believe everything is Vaheguru's hand, then it's all fatalistic. Doesn't matter what I do. I can do right or wrong. It's not my fault. If you believe it's all in my hands, then you get full of ego. Plus, you get frustration when things don't want. You'll get away from Vaheguru. Homa will come in the way. So either of those things is a problem. You have to. These seemingly opposite things have both simultaneously have to be done.
Because
Absolutely right.
we have to have accountability for our actions.
Right? But if our actions are not in our hand, then how can we be accountable? So we can't go to that extreme either.
I mean, there's a little.
But the choices, we have to make certain choices, right? But you're absolutely right.
The reality is, even the choices we make,
sometimes
to a large extent, they are determined by our genes and by how we grew up and so on. But we still have to make those choices. We still have to take the responsibility for them.
So he was explaining this topic, and he gave example of Prophet Muhammad. If somebody asked Prophet Muhammad, like, how much is in my control? And he gave a very simple example. He said, you're standing here, lift one leg. And he said, yes, I can do that. Now try lift the other leg also. He said, I can't do that. I cannot float in the air. That's how much you have in your hand. I've given you God has given enough power to lift one leg, but then the laws of nature of Vaheguru would take over and not take it the other leg.
this is a Zen
That's what.
So when we deal,
ਇੱਕ ਪਰਮ ਭੁੱਲੇ ਫਿਰਦੇ ਆ ਕੁਝ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਲ ਮਿਲਾ ਕੇ ਉਹ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਰੀ ਗੱਲ ਸਮਝਾ ਦਿੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਇੱਕ ਆਪਣੇ ਹੀ ਸੋਚਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਇੰਝ ਕਰਾਂਗਾ ਉਹ ਪਰਮ ਭੁੱਲੇ ਹੋਏ ਸੋ ਗੁਰੂ ਕੋਲ ਆਣਾ ਤੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਕੋਲ ਦੱਸਣਾ ਹੈ ਆਪਣੀ ਮਤ ਨੂੰ ਛੱਡ ਦੇਣਾ ਤੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੀ ਮਤ ਲੈਣੀ ਹੈ ਗੁਰ ਕੀ ਮਤ ਤੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਣੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਐਕਸੈਪਟ ਕਰਨਾ ਪਏਗਾ ਮੂਰਖ ਮੁਗਧ ਅਨਾਥ ਚੰਚਲ ਨੀਚੇ ਜਾਣਾ ਇਹ ਐਕਸੈਪਟ ਕਰਨਾ ਪਏਗਾ ਕਿ ਐਸ ਕੰਪੇਅਰ ਟੂ ਹਿਸ ਇੰਟੈਲੀਜੈਂਸ ਵੀ ਆਰ ਵੈਰੀ ਸੋ ਸਮਾਲ ਇੱਕ ਨਾ ਮੇਲ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਤੂੰ ਬੁਝਾਵੇ ਇੱਕ ਨਾ ਨੂੰ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਮਿਲ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੁਣ ਸਾਰੀ ਸਮਝ ਆ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਐਂਡ ਹੀ ਲਿਵਸ ਵੈਰੀ ਕੰਫਰਟੇਬਲ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਦੁੱਖ ਹੈਗਾ ਜੇ ਕਾਸ ਬੜਾਵੇਂ ਤੇ ਕਿਆ ਘਟ ਜਾਏ ਹੈ ये राज दे तो कमन बढ़ाई मैं की बच जाएगा जे काल बढ़ाए तो क्या कट जाए सो जो वो अवस्था वो तो दी है एक ना मेल सतगुर तू बुझावे एक परम भूले कर दे वो बाकी लेकिन परम हाँ नहीं इंज होना चाहिए this they are wasting time
so one of the
so precious
so one of the lessons from that is when we look at anybody else we should not be judgmental about them because Vaheguru ne ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਪਾਇਆ ਗੁਰੂ ਮਾਰਗ ਤੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ confused ਕੀਤਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੋਇਆ so don't blame anybody for not being a good Sikh for not following religion or for being dishonest or anything else say you know ऐसा Vaheguru ਕਰਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ Vaheguru ਦੇ ਹੱਥ 'ਚ ਹੈਗਾ so for anybody else you say they can't help themselves you know because this is their destiny this is what they've been given you know Vaheguru aap kara raha hai don't blame them but when it comes to yourself then listen to the Guru matlo Guru di then don't blame Vaheguru then you know take the responsibility yourself take his support listen to the Guru but you know try to actually follow it and do it so for yourself you set yourself the highest goals, but for everybody else, don't be judgmental. I think that's the message. One message Gurbani gets when it comes and talks about destiny and Vaheguru de haath sab kuch hai. When they say, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਹੱਥ 'ਚ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ, that's for other people. For yourself, you leave everything in Vaheguru's hand, but you still have to do the best yourself. You have to take responsibility.
We had to make an effort.
Yeah.
You had to plant the tree, whether you get the fruit or not. That's all the money. If you don't plant the fruit, you're not plant the tree, you will not get the fruit.
Yeah, so along these lines, when we talk about Dukh and Sukh, when we face suffering, when something bad happens in spite of our best effort, when a child dies, when there's this explosion and these explosions in Boston, so many innocent people getting killed, all these things happen, we say, why does Vaheguru let these things happen? He's loving, he's just. Why do bad things happen? And we can't really know the answer. We are the created ones, he's the creator. We can only understand a tiny part of it. But here are some of the ways that we can try to answer this question. So one is, of course, it's the result of our karma. Something bad is happening, we must have done something to deserve that, because God is just.
That too, Viji, that when you say that now,
We can only guess.
I don't know. What I'm saying is, when you say that, then you basically are saying, oh, these people deserved it.
Yeah, about yourself.
About yourself.
When we are dealing it.
But when...
Maybe. We are saying it's one of the possible reasons.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying the sensitivity
It can
to that also should be there, right?
Sure.
Don't you think?
Absolutely, you can't blame them. We can't say forget it, it's their own problem. But we can say, well, Vaheguru is just, maybe there was a good reason, and one of them could be this one, that this was his part of his justice for them. We may not understand it, but this could be his way of doing it.
I like your answer that we don't know it.
That's the first thing, that's the main thing, we don't really know. But we can try to rationalize it a little bit, especially in our own case, when something bad happens, we can try to say, maybe it was our own doing. Vaheguru is fair, so he must have had a reason when it happens. Now, it doesn't have to be in previous lives, it can be in this life itself. Sometimes we can think of it. But as you said, a small child doesn't have any karma yet. So then we can think maybe it's his previous life. But and sometimes what feels like it's something bad could actually be good in the long run. Tum karo bhala hum bhalo na jane. He may be doing the right thing, but we don't understand it. Karta sabke janda. He knows everything. And if in all of these we follow the example of a parent and a little child, which is a good analogy, not perfect like all analogies. But sometimes you have to do something the child doesn't like, because you have to set some rules. He's not doing what he should be doing, so you tell him, okay, you have to take away this privilege, you can't have it, can't eat dessert till you had your meal. So this can be a part of the karma thing, so there's some justice, some rules, some so on. But then sometimes it is because it's good for the child. The child wants to stay up awake late at night, but you put him to sleep because he has to go to sleep. You should take him to the doctor to get a shot. No child likes to get shots, but you take him to the doctor and you give the child a shot. So sometimes Vaheguru is doing something for us that's painful, but he may know it's good for you, we may not know, because he's our parent. And other times, it might not be either of those things. It might not be a karma, it may not be good for us, but God has a bigger plan that we don't understand. And getting back to the analogy, parents do things for other reasons that are not related to the child, but they're painful for the child. So you get a job in a new place, it's good to move to the new place, you're going to take the child there, he's going to leave his friends, going to get new friends, but there's a good reason for it. And a lot of things like that, there are other reasons that make sense to the parent, but may not make sense to the child. And it may hurt the child in some ways. The other possibility I've read in some discussions that is interesting is getting back to the karmic theory. The part of it is pain is a part of our growth process for the soul, for the soul to evolve. But sometimes it may not be your own soul, it may be souls of others around you. Some of the things that are going on, they seem to be painful for you, but maybe it's helping you. Others in your family needed to do that because of their karma. So who knows? Basically, we don't know. But we have to believe that God has some good reasons for everything.
Guru Sahib ne same incident, Guru Granth Sahib, Babar Wani. There are 4 shapats in Guru Granth Sahib which describe that.
Right.
When all this kind of thing happens, what do you do? Just Babar ne attack kiya, so many people died, a lot of innocent people died. Everybody is fleeing from Sialkot. Guru Nanak Dev was going in there. He was an eyewitness and he wrote down, got that. And he told us what to do in these kind of situations. He helped the needy. Okay? But at the same time, he's saying, Sahib ke gun Nanak gaave, Maspuri vich Aatma sola. उसने क्वेश्चन नहीं कर रहे ऐसे क्यों कीता है किस तरह हो गया ये चीजें साहिब के गुण नानक का I see we have to still pray sing the praises of that Almighty God.
It's part of his play, right? It's part of his George Vedant.
ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਬਦਲੇ ਕਿਉਂ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਇਹ ਉਹਦਾ ਹੁਕਮ ਸੀ ਹੁਕਮ ਰਜਾਈ ਚੱਲਣਾ ਨਾਨਕ ਕੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਇਹ ਹੁਕਮ
in there also he says if you mark by Kurlane thank you guys
ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸਮਝਣਾ ਪਏਗਾ ਉਹ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਕਿ ਗॉड ਨੂੰ ਕੰਪਲੇਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਉਹ ਨਾਨਕ ਦੇਵ ਜੀ ਕਦੀ ਕੰਪਲੇਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤੀ ਉਹਦੇ ਹੁਕਮ ਚ ਰਹੇ
so what does this mean then?
we have to look at the whole show. We cannot just
can you look at it?
Yeah.
Maybe we can do it offline later. We can do it offline later on.
Let's say focus on this.
Okay.
No, we are talking about this. This is suffering. This is part of suffering. Iti maar pai kurlane thank you darna aaya. You know,
पूरा शब्द लेना पड़ेगा.
that's part of suffering. I mean, there is so much like, I mean, we are 2 days past what happened, this horrible incident.
उसके 4 शब्द पढ़ोगे तो आपको समझ आएगा. जिनसे सोहन पट्टियां मांगी पाए संदूर से सरकाती मनियां वो की चीज हो रही है. We need to understand. जे ऐसी चीज समझना चाहते हैं ना ਅਸੀਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਦੇਵ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੀਏ. He will teach you. कि मैं तो जो भी दस देंगे तो भूल जाएगा कल पे.
So let's move on.
जी 4 शब्द पढ़ो तो you would गुरु नानक देव जी समझा देंगे.
At the end of the day, he's saying, don't, it is happening, it is playing, connect with him. That's the message at the end of it all, right? He's describing the horrors.
सारा जब चीज़ टाई होता है क्या हुक्म रजाई चलना नानक लिखा ये हुक्म चलना whatever happened is ये हुक्म है क्या वो वाइफ का हुक्म है क्या we are trying to judge his हुक्म
we understand
he is wrong no
because it's fathomless
ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਚੈलेंज नहीं करना हुक्म रजाई पता की है क्या तेरा किया मीठा जे ਅਸੀਂ कह रहे ਸਾਨੂੰ मीठा नहीं लग रहा ना तो something is wrong here ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਮਿੱਠਾ ਲੱਗ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਉਹ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਇਹ 4 ਸ਼ਬਦਾਂ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਹੈ how can you do that when you look at a bigger picture God he loves everybody he loves me he loves that child also so ਕੋਈ ਚੀਜ਼ ਐਸੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਇਹਦੇ ਚ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਸ ਬੱਚੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਚੰਗੀ ਸੀ ਜੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਨੇ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ and I cannot see beyond this wall but Vaheguru can see miles away.
Yeah, our definitions of what is sad and what is good are different from Vaheguru's. We think death is terrible. A lot of people are getting killed. For Vaheguru's, they are just the soul going from one to the other. The other thing is Vaheguru himself is in all those people that are being hurt, and he's hurting himself. It's part of that game, part of a broader plan that we don't understand.
It's non-question.
We have changed ourselves. अपनी सूरत ਨੂੰ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਆਪਣੀ ਬੁੱਧੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਣੀ ਇੰਟੈਲੀਜੈਂਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕੈਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਾਇਆ. We don't let it.
I think what it is trying to fathom the fathomless. That's what it is.
Right.
We don't get it. We don't understand it. We really don't understand why. We don't understand.
Now what we're talking about is a way to deal with the issue.
That's
That there are things that happen. We don't let something reduce our faith in God. Don't let us say कि वाहिगुरु क्यों करन दिंदा है.
Yes, he loves that child. Probably there was something good in that. We cannot see it, but ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਜੀ ਆਪ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਮਰਮ ਪੱਟੀ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਆਪ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ. We ਉਹ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਿਖਾ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਯੂਜ਼ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ. We should help the needy. ਪਰ ਉਹਦੇ ਹੁਕਮ ਚ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ. ਸਾਹਿਬ ਕੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਅਸੀਂ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਉਹਦੇ ਹੁਕਮ ਗਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਗੁਣ ਗਾਣੇ ਨੇ.
ਬਿਲਕੁਲ
We will still praise the Lord. ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਤਦ ਹੀ ਆਏਗੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਏਗਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੋਈ ਪਿਆਰ ਤੋਂ ਸਿਵਾ ਦੂਜੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੈ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ. ਇਹ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਇਸੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਮਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਬੈਠ ਜਾਏ ਕਿ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਪਿਆਰ ਤੋਂ ਸਿਵਾ ਕੋਈ ਦੂਜਾ ਮਿੱਠ ਬੋਲਣਾ ਜੀ ਹਰ ਸੱਜਣ
स्वामी मोरा
ਹਾਂ ਸੰਭਲ ਤੱਕ ਕੀ ਜੋ ਕਦੇ ਨਾ ਬੋਲੇ ਚੋਕੋੜਾ. ਇਹ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕਹਿ ਲੋਗੇ ਕਿ ਮੈਰਾਥਨ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਦੇ ਕਿ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਮਿੱਠ ਬੋਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਹਾਊ ਕੈਨ ਵੀ ਸੇ ਦੈਟ ਜਦ ਤੱਕ ਦੇਖਨੇ ਅੰਦਰੋਂ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਸਮਝ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਏਗੀ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨਾਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਜੁੜ ਸਕਦੇ.
Okay, so this next slide kind of addresses that. We have to transcend happiness and sorrow. We have to transcend positive and negatives. They are all gifts from Vaheguru, as you were telling us earlier. Guru Sahib ne kiya keta dukh bhuk sadmar e bhi daat teri daatar. All of this is also a gift from Vaheguru, though we may not understand it.
Yeah. That's it, we don't
Everything's a
understand.
gift. So what we need to do, what the spiritually advanced Gurmukh does is he can actually treat happiness and sorrow the same. That's what Gurbani is telling us to do. I can't tell you that I can always do it, but that is the goal. That's where we want to get to. Sukh Dukh dono samkar jane aur maan apmana. Harak sokte rahe atita tin jag tat pachana. This is the reality we have to get after. Positive, negative things, these are all part of God's gifts, and we have to keep an even keel, even in the presence of positive and negative things happening. And we have to recognize them all as Vaheguru's hukam, as Vaheguru's gifts, and still be able to treat it all as the same. Now, it doesn't mean that we are unaffected by anything. It doesn't mean withdrawing from the world. We still have to be actively engaged. If you look at the lives of the gurus, they were actively engaged. They were very full of energy. They did a lot of things, but they didn't let anything take them away from the basic path of staying in love with Vaheguru, staying calm, staying it's all Vaheguru's hukam, and taking all these things and not being tossed around by them. So happiness and sorrow are all gifts, and they're all the same. That is the challenge, to achieve that state.
It's not something you can do.
But it's something you can work towards.
Mind at which it automatically happens.
Yeah, you don't just say I'm going to do it, but you keep that in mind, that this is what the Guru is telling you. And what you do is you, through Naam, Simran, Part, through following the Guru's teachings, you achieve further and further along this stage of being able to have it.
You have to put an effort into it. It's something that is just automatic, right? It's a state of mind. It's an elevated state of mind, which is all striving forward.
Right. But knowing that's where you want to get helps us to start dealing with the things that happen. We know we have to treat happiness and sorrow as God's gifts and treat them the same. We won't be able to treat them the same, but maybe we can be less affected, and we can keep the good things from going to our head, because Vaheguru says treat them the same. The Guru tells us to do that, and keep the negative things from throwing us off course completely. They'll still hurt us, but maybe they'll hurt us a little bit less, and we'll know how to deal with it. So knowing that we should treat them the same is important. It's important to try to follow these teachings, but not that we can just say te ho gaya,
And it takes effort. It's not easy.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's very difficult. It's one of the hardest things.
It's one of the toughest things.
Yeah. But knowing we have to do it is important.
But Guru Sahib di baat leke, Guru Sahib kehte ne, as we are totally connected. I mean, you will see all these.
The Guru Sahib di mat leni bhi.
शरीर ना connected है. Guru Sahib ने कहा कि जब तक इसको नहीं उठोगे ना साधो, एतन मिथ्या जानो.
But Jagmohan ji, describing this is easy. Actually imbibing it is hard.
Yeah.
It is hard. It's not easy. But Guru di mat leni bhi to sokhi nahi hai na. That is a challenge. But ek baari karke to nahi ho janda na. It's a lifelong effort. It's not easy. Right. These are all techniques for doing that.
I mean, the action is hard. This is the gift.
Yeah.
The elevated state of mind.
Yeah.
This is the gift. You can't act on this.
You can strive towards it, and you can strive towards it and work towards it. But you have to depend on Vaheguru to give it to you. That's with all of this. You have to. Exactly. Right.
We cannot really command it that you are going to give it to me. It's a good prasad.
But apne nu te keh sakde hain na ki main isna karna hai. I have to teach the Guru is telling me I have to do that.
ना तो मैं तभी सीधे प्यार से जुड़े हुए हैं ना. तो पानी तो देखो कई जगह पे है. ये नहीं भी देता, पर मैं तो तेरे प्यार से जी रहा ना.
Vidapal had given this example, very beautiful and very hard touch. So, there is a Gurdwara which a good Sikh family, very good. And they lost their young son, 22 years old. And everybody is crying a lot. The father is a genuine person, very elevated state of mind. He not only doesn't cry, aap ardas ki thi. And during the ardas, he's saying, Guru Sahib, this was a gift for you, from you, my son. You gave me the luxury of raising him for 22 years and enjoying his company. And now, it was your gift and you decided to take it away.
This is the perfect way to handle losses. People die, that is life. Everybody is going to die. When you lose somebody, it's not that you lost him, but look at who you had before that. It's a gift, We had our parents, even though they've died now. It was a blessing to have our parents and to learn from them and be with them. Even if they are gone now, we have to be thankful that we had them.
But to actually internally
at that time it's a blessing to be able to do that.
There's one more thing, that you may know it theoretically because you have been living with Gurbani, you've had the good fortune of people drilling it into your head, right? You understand it theoretically. You also accept it because you are a Sikh and you want to accept the Guru's word as the truth. But the process will take its place, like anything else.
Yeah.
The process will take its place. For some, it may happen instantly, and for some, it will happen. But it will happen as you go through the various stages of it.
Yeah.
बानी से दो चीज़ आने हैं, जानना तो मानना. कहो कभी जब जानिया, जब जानिया तो मन मानिया. जानना ऐसा है कि जिस तरह की लेकिन एक blind man है. Blind man भी जेड़ा है ना, with the help of a stick and all that, he can find a door. ते उन्हों कोई फाड़ के बाँव ते डोर दे बदले किसी देखे द्वार ते भी सक उन्हों उधर फंसा सकता है ना. So जिस चीज़ दे नाल मन जान गए हैं ना, असी कोई opposite उधर देखे example ते तुम दूसरे पासे भी ले जा सकते हो. पर मान्या की है, it's like the light has come on. Now the light has come on. You cannot tell me the door is not on that side. I know the door is over there. So that's the difference between janna and manna. Janna means asi पढ़ लिया, asi explain भी कर सकते हैं मेरे वर्गा, जे लेकिन मतलब भी दस सकते हैं. ये सिर्फ जानना है, ये मानना नहीं का. मैं हाले मान्या नहीं का. Okay, I'm like blind. So गुरु साहब ने ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੱਲ ਦੱਸੀ ਗਈ ਹੈ, ਉਹ सिर्फ ये जान सकते हैं ਅਸੀਂ. फिर कहते हैं केवड़ बड़ा जीठा होए, वो कितना बड़ा है. हाल तक सुन के जी कहने पे ना, वो बड़ा बड़ा है. पर जो देखांगे ना, oh my God, I was wasting my time onto these petty things. ये मेरे गोडे दर्द होनी शुरू हो गए थे. ऐसे just minor thing. ये तो देखना बड़ी बड़ी चीज है ये.
So it's about experiencing that state.
ओ कबीर जन जानिया, जो जानिया तो मन मानिया. ये मन ਨੂੰ ਮਨਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ. ਮਨ ਜੀਤਿਆ ਜਗਜੀਤ. ਇਹ ਸਾਰੀ ਜਬ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਉਸੇ ਵਿਆਖਿਆ ਹੈ. ਜਦ ਤੱਕ ਅਸੀਂ ਮਨ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਸਮ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਇਹ ਮਨ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਸਮ ਹੈ. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ ਨਾ, ਸੁਖ ਦੁੱਖ ਇਸ ਮਨ ਕੀ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ. ਇਹ ਇਸ ਸਰੀਰ ਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂਗਾ ਸੁਖ ਦੁੱਖ. मैं कई बार होता है. उस दिन कल भी मैं किसी गुरमुख को गया थे, देखना वो हॉस्पिटल से रह के आया. मैं की हाल ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ बस. मैं ਕਿਹਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੁਝ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਇਆ. मैं ਕਿਹਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੁਝ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਇਆ. मैं ਕਿਹਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਦੇਖਨੇ ਗੋਡੇ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਂ ਦੇਖਨੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਦੇਖਨੇ ਇੱਥੇ your arteries or collapse or all that, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਹੋਇਆ, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੁਝ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਇਆ. You could still do Simran. ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਮੰਮੀ ਨੂੰ ਬੜੀ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ, ਮੰਮੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਕੁਝ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਇਆ. ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਦੇਖਨੇ you are in the wheelchair, so ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਗੋਡੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੱਲ ਸਕਦੇ, ਫਿਰ ਕੀ ਹੋਇਆ? ਪਰ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਮਨ ਤੇ ਪੂਰੀ ਸਪੀਡ ਤੇ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ. You can still thank him. So ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੈ ਕਿ we have to rise above this body. ਸਾਧੋ ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਮਿਥਿਆ ਜਾਣ.
Similarly, my mother-in-law, she told me once that bachpan de vich she was able to do a lot of singing. She said that, and when she went through pain and suffering, she said that it was very hard for her to do it. She said this to me many times during her last years. As you know, she lived with us for many years, and she would tell me, "Bacha, hum nahi honga." Now another one person that I was close to, he was a cousin, and he had spent a lot of his life in Simran and inspiring others. Hun kinna honda koi jande ne, right? He also said the same to me. Okay, do it while you are young and your body is healthy. When you are in pain, man will die.
It can go both ways, Jesse. It can go both ways.
I'm just telling you, I'm sharing two experiences.
It can.
Yeah. बस मैं तुम दसना बाणी दे सहारा गया. जी तुसी really, if you want to really learn why it's happening there, by Veer Singh जी एक छोटी बुक है ये, सत औखियां रातां.
Yeah, it's a beautiful collection.
Okay, सत औखियां रातां ਜਿਹੜੀ है वो है कि ये गुरु गोविंद सिंह जी दे mother-in-law की story. How she went through different 7 stages. वो पाठ करते सी, रोज नित्यनेम करते सी, संगत जाते सी. But how she was in a low state of mind after doing all of these when her husband passed away. she had only one daughter, Bibi Mata Jitoji, who was married to Guru Gobind Singh Ji. And they were rich people. Husband died. She never put a step out of her house without her husband. All of a sudden he dies. That's the first man. And how her mind, Jinnah de name Simran or Nityanem Jandi si, she didn't want to do that. And how she picked her up. It describes all of that. Kisana Bani or Sangat di Kirpa de naal, she picks it up. Now she goes to Anandpur Sahib to tell her daughter that her father had passed away. So, ਉੱਥੇ ਦੇ ਕਨੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ, ਉੱਥੇ ਦੇ ਕਨੇ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਹੈ ਮਾਤਾ ਜੀਤੋ ਜੀ ਥੋੜੇ ਚਿਰ ਬਾਅਦ ਉਹ ਸਵਾਸ ਛੱਡ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ। ਮਾਤਾ ਜੀਤੋ ਜੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਚਲੇ ਗਏ ਸੀ। ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਚਾਰੋਂ ਸਾਹਿਬਜ਼ਾਦੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਕਨੇ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਹੋ ਜਾਣਗੇ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਰਹਿਣਾ। So second time.
Well, let's not cover the whole thing now because we do have to get back to this.
Yeah. I'm just saying, but how she accepts that, and slowly, how the acceptance is coming into that. उन पता लग रहा है माया की चीज़ है कि है, एक जेडी चीज़ ना, उन्होंने संगत आगे कहते हैं, आज तक तो पता लगा है कि जीवन जेड़ा है, ये मिथ्या है. This life is not going to stay there. And this is the time you have to come to Sangat so that you can realize whatever you're reading about it, it is all happening to me now.
So this gets back to even, why people who are very spiritually advanced, they go through a lot of challenges because Vaheguru is giving them excuses or ways for their soul to get still further along. And there can be tests that they can pass. And in the meanwhile, they can slip back for a while. It can actually take you away. But it can eventually also make you still stronger and spiritually get you to a still higher level as you do deal with these challenges. So next couple of slides, I just want to talk about, some of it's a recap. So what are some of the specific ways we can try to achieve our level of true happiness? Not just happiness in the sense of, things that make us go up and down, but actually make our life happier in a deeper sense. And the basic one, of course, is Naam Simran, which gives us the ability to keep an even keel, to get a state of equipoise and to deal with these ups and downs and still take this attitude of Jai Sukh Dukh Tujhe Dhyai, Jai Sukh Dukh Tujhe Radhi Dukh Bhi Tujhe Dhyai, the ability to keep that even keel, to maintain Chardi Kala and to transcend pleasure and pain, where you can take Sukh and Dukh the same. Kabir Har Ka Simran Jo Kare So Sukhiya Sansar. And there's Gurbani is full of quotations that tell you how Simran and Sukh are tied together. The real Sukh comes from Simran, from being one with Vaheguru. Itut kadena dolei jes rakhe sirjanhar. So Naam Simran brings you the real ultimate happiness. We talked about prayer and leaning on Vaheguru. This very nice shabad, Uthat Sukhiya, Baithat Sukhiya, Bhavni Lage Ja Aise Bujhiya, Rakha Ek Hamara Swami, Sagal Ghata Ka Antarjami. So seeing him as our Rakha, remembering that he's the one who takes care of us, and depending on him and thinking of him all the time then you can be happy at all stages. Uthat Sukhiya, Baithat Sukhiya, Soya Chinta, Jagya Chinta. This whole shabad goes on with that. So those are two basic things, Naam Simran and prayer, and depending on Vaheguru. The other big one is Hukam, of course. Accepting his Hukam, as you were saying, Guru Nanak Dev Ji told us even in Babar Vani. Remember, recognizing everything is his Hukam. Tiska Hukam Booj Sukh Hoye, Tiska Naam Rak Kant Par Hoye. It's recognizing his Hukam in everything, being gratefully accepting what happens, whether it's good or bad, as his Hukam. That is a big specific strategy we can try to follow, is to always, when something good happens, remember it's his Hukam, we have to be grateful. Something bad happens, again remember it's his Hukam. So reminding ourselves about that. And specifically gratitude. We think of Hukam, when we think of Bhana Manna, we usually think of only bad things happening. And that's very important. That is extremely important when something goes bad, to remember his Bhana and accept it that way. But it's also important to remember his Bhana has good in it too. And not only that, but so many of the good things happen, we take for granted. We don't even think about them. So reminding ourselves of all the blessings is a big part of achieving a state of constant gratitude and happiness. So it's important to actually stop and thank Vaheguru for all his blessings, all the things that we take for granted.
And that becomes the best prayer.
Yeah, it is, and I try to do that in the morning when I wake up. Start off by saying Tera Shukr, and before going to sleep, thanking Him for all the things during the day. As I was saying earlier, I've seen people who I know are spiritually very advanced and even heal, and some of the older people, you see them muttering Vaheguru Tera Shukr. As, at times when you wouldn't stop to think about it, but they stop to think and say Vaheguru Tera Shukr. We take things for granted. They remember ke Vaheguru Karda Pya. And that I think is one of the specific strategies that actually makes a big difference in your life. If we actually stop to think of His blessings and thank Him, then that builds up the whole process, and it strengthens our Naam, Simran, Ardas, everything else. It becomes a big reinforcer to do that. Gratitude.
It becomes the basis of charity.
Yeah.
Gratitude.
Yeah. The other thing is seva, any kind of seva, and I'm not just talking about seva in the Gurdwara. It's doing things for other people, giving of yourself. There was actually a study recently that asked people based on professions and how they rated their happiness. They found that the highest ratings came from people in the caregiving profession, nurses, doctors, others like that, and people in the NGOs, non-profit organizations who are out there doing service. Things like people are out in doing things in Africa and other parts of the world who are just out there, out of the goodness of their heart. They're going through all this trouble, doing all that. They actually are very happy with their lives. They're among the happiest people. So when you do things for other people,
I was just going to say that we don't really, on a daily basis, all of us are not going to have the opportunity to.
No, that is just an indication.
Yeah.
But we interact with people in our own family. It starts in our own family. It starts with our friends. It's giving rather than receiving.
And giving can be
And doing things for
very
people.
Simple. The giving can be a word of encouragement, a word of kindness, a compliment.
Well, some of it is just taking the time to stop thinking about ourselves and thinking about the people around us. To do something for them instead of for ourselves. If we go from selfishness to kindness, go from receiving to giving, that little bit at every stage increases our own happiness more than it might be doing for the other people.
Biggest joy.
Even taking care of old parents, taking care of little kids, those things can be very fulfilling. Just taking a child out to the park and playing with them and getting down to their level. You're doing something for him, not for yourself, but you get more happiness out of it. So that's selfless seva. It starts with that, and that's why selfless seva, whether it's in the Gurdwara or somewhere, is a good starting point, because it also takes us in that direction. But as long as you're doing seva and you're not thinking of yourself and you're willing to work towards it, put in the effort on anything, that actually contributes to our own chardikala, our own happiness.